October 24th, 1942. On a ridge above Henderson Field in Guadalcanal, the jungle went completely quiet. And every Marine on that line knew exactly what that silence meant. 3,000 elite Japanese soldiers were about to come through the dark, and we had 2 machine guns, a handful of men, and not nearly enough ammunition. I'm 96 years old. I've had a long time to think about what happened next. Let me tell you, because some things need to be said out loud before they disappear forever. My name is Mike Romano. I'm a Marine. Was a Marine. You don't really stop being one. I served with the 1st Battalion, 7th Marines, 1st Marine Division. By the time it was all said and done, I fought at Guadalcanal in 1942 and at Iwo Jima in 1945. The government gave me a Medal of Honor for the first one. They gave me a Navy Cross for the second one, only I wasn't around to receive it. People look at those medals and they see glory. I look at them and I see faces. I've told this story 100 times, to reporters, to school kids, to congressmen who shook my hand and forgot my name before I left the room. But I want to tell it one more time, the right way. Not the cleaned up version, the real one. The version where you can smell the jungle and feel your hands shaking, and understand that the difference between a hero and a dead man is sometimes nothing more than 3 seconds, and a decision you make before you've even had time to think. So, October 1942, a jungle island called Guadalcanal. Let me take you there. I grew up in Somerset, New Jersey, son of Italian immigrants. My father worked in a factory his whole life. My mother made Sunday gravy every week without fail. Didn't matter what was happening in the world. I was never what you'd call a student. Books and I didn't get along. But working with my hands, machinery, engines, anything mechanical, that came natural to me. I could take apart a motor and put it back together before most guys my age had figured out how to shave. I enlisted in the Marines when I was 17. Lied about my age. Don't look at me like that. Every other kid in the neighborhood was doing the same thing. There was something about the Corps that just pulled at me. The discipline. The idea that you were part of something bigger than yourself. I shipped to the Philippines first, then China. By the time Pearl Harbor happened on December 7th, 1941, I'd already been in the Corps for 4 years. I'd seen some things. Thought I was hard. I didn't know what hard was yet. The word came down that we were going to a place called Guadalcanal, Jungle Island in the Solomon Chain. The Marines had landed there in August 1942 and taken an airfield from the Japanese. Henderson Field, they called it. Now the Japanese wanted it back. By October, I was a sergeant running 2 machine gun sections. My boys, my guns. And on the night of October 24th, the jungle went quiet. You know that feeling when every hair on your body stands up at the same time? That's what it was. That's silence. My gunner, a kid from Ohio we called Chuckles because he never laughed at anything, looked at me and whispered, "How many you think?" I said, "Enough. Stay on that gun." Intelligence later told us it was 3,000 men, the Sendai Division, elite soldiers, hand-picked. They came through the dark in waves, screaming, blowing bugles and whistles, trying to break us psychologically before they even reached the wire. It almost worked. The first wave hit around midnight. Our guns opened up and the noise was... there's no way to describe it to someone who wasn't there. The muzzle flash lit up the jungle in strobes, the heat from the barrel, the smell of gunpowder so thick you could taste it on your teeth. and the sound just kept going, kept going, kept going. We stopped the first wave. The second wave came an hour later. Between waves, we worked, cleared jams, redistributed ammunition, checked on the wounded. Danny, one of my section leaders, had taken shrapnel across his forearm, but he wouldn't leave the gun. I wrapped it myself with a strip cut from my shirt. He was back on the trigger in 4 minutes. By the time the third wave came, we'd lost 2 men. By the time the fourth wave came, we'd lost 4. The survivors were pulling double duty, running between positions, firing until their hands blistered from the heat of the guns. I kept moving, position to position, fixing, directing, encouraging, yelling when I had to, whispering when the situation called for quiet. And then, sometime in the early hours of October 25th, I looked down at the ammunition and felt my stomach drop. We were almost out. Let me be honest with you about something. I didn't make some grand, heroic decision in that moment. I didn't weigh the options. I didn't think about medals or history or what people would say later. I thought about my men. I thought about what would happen to this ridge if our guns went silent. I thought about Henderson Field and the pilots who flew out of it every morning, and the thousands of Marines who were counting on this line to hold. And then I picked up an ammunition belt. Resupply was behind us, through several hundred yards of jungle that Japanese infiltrators had already moved through. 90 pounds of ammunition, maybe more. And between me and that supply point was everything trying to kill me. I went anyway. I can't tell you exactly how long it took. Time doesn't work right in moments like that. The jungle was alive with fire coming from every direction. I stayed low. I moved fast. When I couldn't run, I crawled. At one point, I came within arm's reach of a Japanese soldier moving through the brush. We both froze. I don't know why he didn't fire. I don't know why I didn't fire. And then we both moved away from each other in opposite directions, like 2 men who'd made a silent agreement. I got to the supply point. I loaded up everything I could carry. I went back. I did it twice. When I came back the second time, 2 of my gunners were dead. Their guns were undamaged. I moved one gun to a better position myself, set it up, and manned it until someone could take over. By dawn, the ammunition was nearly gone again. Completely gone. And the Japanese were still coming. That's when I picked up my pistol. And my machete. You do what you have to do. That's all it is. You do what you have to do because the alternative is unthinkable. When the sun finally came up on October 25th, the attack was over. The ridge held. Henderson Field was safe. I was still alive. Most of my men were not. I sat down in the mud and I just sat there. For a long time. They sent me back to the States. National hero, they said. Life magazine. War bond tours. People lining up to shake my hand. I smiled because that was what the situation required. But inside, you know what I kept thinking? I kept thinking about Chuckles. About Danny. About Big Pete and the way he used to hum to himself when he cleaned his weapon. I kept thinking about all the boys on that ridge who did everything I did and more, and didn't get to come home and shake anybody's hand. They offered me a commission, officer rank, safe assignment as an instructor. I turned it down. People thought I was crazy. Maybe I was. But it didn't feel right to me, staying home while my corps was still fighting. So I requested combat duty again. And in July of 1944, I married a Marine sergeant named Lena. Best thing I ever did in my life. She knew what she was marrying. She knew what came with it. She put that ring on her finger, and she never took it off. I shipped out for Iwo Jima in early 1945. February 19th, the invasion began. We landed on that beach, and the Japanese opened up on us from fortified blockhouses that nothing seemed to touch. I flanked one. Grenades and demolitions. I guided a trapped tank through a minefield under fire. The crew made it out alive. And then a Japanese mortar found me. I'm 96 years old, and I'm telling you this story from a kitchen in New Jersey, the same kind of place I grew up in. Outside the window right now, the sun is coming up. I still notice that. Every single morning. Those men on the ridge, they never got ordinary mornings. They never got kitchens and coffee and grandchildren asking them what the war was like. They gave all of that away so that other people could have it. That's what I need you to understand. Not the medals, not the battles. The cost. The very ordinary human cost. You'll face moments in your life when the situation demands more than you think you have. More courage, more endurance, more sacrifice. And in those moments, you'll feel the same thing I felt on that ridge. The absolute certainty that you cannot do it. Do it anyway. Because the men beside you are counting on you. And later, if you're lucky enough to have a later, you'll sit in the early morning dark, and you'll know that when it mattered most, you didn't quit. That's all any of us can ask of ourselves. That's enough.